Welcome, everybody, to the Soul of the Unexplained. I am your host, Jim Kelgard. That's right, Jim with two M's. Why? Well, that's my mama dropped me on my head a couple times, so I guess that kind of makes sense. We won't talk about me being a Raiders fan because that's just further confirmation of the fact that I'm not quite right in the head. But that notwithstanding, let me welcome my awesome group of co-hosts here, starting with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. John Stratton. How are you, Johnny?
I'm doing pretty good today. How's everybody else doing?
Doing fantastic, doing fantastic. And of course, I got to give a big shout out to my very dear friend, Mr. John Nyberger, the greatest bass player to ever grace the stage at Phenomicon. John, how are you, sir?
Doing well, doing well. Happy to be
Good,
here.
good. Are you adjusting to not having the Broncos to watch on TV anymore?
Well, there's still all the off-season news now, so,
Ah, right
Now
on.
everyone's talking about draft stuff.
Usually when football
Free
makes the
agents.
news, it's not good.
Yep. Absolutely. So, of course, we want to welcome our guest of honor today, somebody who we're really excited to be joining us here on the Soul of the Unexplained for the very first time ever. I guess we could call him the man, the myth, the legend as well, because it would apply to some of the work that he does. That would be Mr. Chris Roberts, who, of course, is the archaeologist that splits his time between not just Skinwalker Ranch, but also Mount Wilson Ranch, which we'll have to talk a little bit about that as well. But Chris, welcome. We are so happy to have you here. How are you doing, buddy?
Oh, thank you. I'm doing good. It's good to see you guys. So yeah, enjoying the winter and hanging out here
Right on.
up in the basin.
Are you guys
Enjoying the
getting,
winter.
yeah, you guys getting hit with
I don't
snow up
understand.
there?
Are we getting hit with snow? No, actually, it is. It was 58 degrees yesterday, and it's pushing that today. We've had a very mild winter. It's probably going to be a drought again this summer, and we've had very little snow, very little freezing, and it is like better than spring right now versus the Northeast. It's really nice out here right now. We could be getting a lot of work done if we wanted to.
Sure. It's kind of the same way here in of course where I'm at on the Wasatch Front here in between Salt Lake City and whatnot. It's been I think it almost hit 60 yesterday, and like you were saying, I think it's
hmm
supposed to get close to that today here in the Salt Lake area where I'm at.
hmm
But Chris, of course, we first got to meet you this last week, this last year at Phenomicon in 2025, and our subscribers and viewers got to see you for the first time on The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch during season 6 of the docuseries. So, I guess to start off, Chris, just tell us a little bit about what it is you do and how did you come to get involved in archaeology?
Well, gosh, that goes way back. I decided I wanted to be an archaeologist in high school. So I realized I needed to have some type of profession, and I loved roaming the hills and looking at old things and just exploring. And that was what I just kind of went with when it was time to decide. That's what I wanted to do. I mean, of course, I loved Indiana Jones, who doesn't, and all the adventure shows in that realm. But that was what I really wanted to do, and it was the aspect of actually protecting the sites is what I wanted to do when I realized what you could go into with cultural resource management and how you can do energy and infrastructure projects. And then at the same time, you're protecting the resources. So I looked at it as an aspect where I could be on the inside versus the outside and help protect the sites from the inside when we build something. And so I went to college to do that, went to UCSB in Santa Barbara, California. I'm originally
Nice.
from California, but I was up here in the basin when I decided that. We moved up here in about 78, 1978. My dad moved us up to Vernal, and so it was these hills out here where Skinwalker Ranch is, where I got my love for history and prehistory. And then went back down to California for college, and then came back up here after working down there for a while after college in the 90s, early 2000s. Then moved back up here, roaming these hills around the Uintah Basin for like oil and gas development. And, went to a graduate school at Utah State, and then continued on with archaeology as well as other environmental compliance work. that where I deal with all kind of resources, cultural resources, paleontology, biology, but just general
Nice.
compliance on projects where we're protecting everything in the environment that you're going to deal with in developments, and applying that so that we can get infrastructure built or energy projects built while also protecting the resources.
Very cool. So when you were coming up through college, did you get to go on any exciting digs like out in Vernal or that area for like you mentioned paleontology? Any dinosaur digs or anything like that that you ever got to go on?
Not dinosaur stuff. I kept mine all in the realm of archaeology, and a lot of it was down in California. But I did get to do some work out on the Channel Islands,
Oh,
Catalina,
nice.
particularly, as well as Anacapa Island, and then I did a lot of work right in the Santa Barbara area where we're dealing with Spanish colonial work at the Santa Barbara Presidio, which is right in the heart of downtown Santa Barbara. So I had a pretty
Yeah.
good thing going there, where you're dealing with prehistoric, protohistoric, historic period. Everything was coming into there in the 1800s. So it was very interesting time to learn actually historic archaeology, not just prehistoric. And so it was really, really cool to look at that. And I kind of became a lab rat in analysis of historic artifacts, prehistoric artifacts. I did a lot of lab work rather than walk in the field looking for the sites, but a lot of lab work at that time. But those are kind of my favorite time is probably going out on the islands and finding things out there and documenting those things. And then in the Utah area, I've covered a lot of the reservation. We had giant mega archaeological crews out surveying for all the different oil and gas development they had out there in the early 2000s. So I've seen a ton of it out there and a lot of really awesome sites, just middle of nowhere. Nobody even knows about them. Just beautiful stuff, whether it's historic Ute or prehistoric or archaic or paleo. It's a lot of beautiful stuff out there.
Fantastic. I love the Uintah Basin is one of my favorite places to be. I've lived in Utah now for about let's see, 31 some odd years now, I think. It's crazy, but yeah, there's so much great history that's out there. Not a lot of the ancient cultures you can still, of course, you got things like McConkey Ranch that are out there, the petroglyphs. There's all kinds of great petroglyphs and stuff, and then of course we mentioned the dinosaur stuff with Vernal and whatnot out there. But one thing I was kind of curious about in reading your bio with for your upcoming appearance at Phenomicon 2026. It mentions xenobiology. I'd never heard that term before. What exactly is xenobiology? I mean, I can figure xeno kind of would mean like foreign or something.
Well,
Something like that.
xenoarchaeology.
Yeah.
So not xenobiology, but xenoarchaeology. So what that is essentially is archaeology of the strange. Xeno means strange.
Ah, okay. All right.
So what we're dealing with, and this goes back to actually what we're dealing with at Skinwalker Ranch, where we're finding the ceramic material and other materials coming out of the mesa that are in an area that they shouldn't be in, or they shouldn't be hundreds of feet in and below, 70 feet down, hundreds of feet into the mesa. That material shouldn't be there. And then it's coming back as an anomalous material that something I can do generally, which I was talking about, is I can identify ceramics pretty much
Mhm.
on site. I can tell you what it is, who made it, and then we can get analysis from there. Um, but this stuff, the stuff that we've described in season 6 is very hard to categorize, and doesn't fit just anything. And when we had season 6, we were analyzing it and looking at it and trying to put it into a box, which is what you do in archaeology, right? Everybody's written a paper on a different kind of ceramics, marbles, beads, whatever it is, right? You've got somebody's made it. It's been documented either during history when they manufactured it, during the written record when they're documenting these things, or after the fact when you look at prehistoric things, where it's all has a place to put on the shelf, call it what it is, what time period it comes from, where it comes from in the world. But what we're finding with this, where it's located, it's strangely located at a depth it shouldn't be. And again, we're not in the mesa yet with only the drilling going on, which everyone saw in season 6, where we we haven't found it in situ, which is in place, right? That's really how you find out what an archaeological site holds, is how everything is laid out on the ground. And that's what is missing from a lot of different sites where people claim really incredible things, but there's provenience, which is where you find something, not necessarily provenance, which is where something was made, like art, like some art from Italy or something. But
Right.
provenience is where you find it, and you find it in place, in situ. So we haven't got to that point. We only have the depth under the mesa and into the mesa for these artifacts at this time, but they're coming up very anomalous. So it's essentially, xenoarchaeology is the archaeology of the strange, where you've got these things that you've got the label that people have given things of out of place parts, right? Which you guys have heard of, which has a
Right.
stigma that goes along with it. Well, this is just more of an honest way to look at it, where you apply archaeology to these things and these different artifacts, whether it is people that have found these different artifacts, go, well, this shouldn't be here. It's dating to 2 million years ago, this iron thing. But, well, let's look at that. And that's essentially xenoarchaeology, the study of the strange. But also you have within it, which I gave a presentation on the ship about this, you might have stuff that is so old it doesn't have much more than a signal or a very small remnant that you can't truly identify to the cultures that we know. Or it might be coming across like what we're finding at Skinwalker Ranch with an electromagnetic signal. All right. And when you find it in place, it may still have that signal, but this material that we've shown is strangely magnetic. It has other properties that I'm not able to divulge at this time. And as you saw under the SEM, it may have some properties there that are very, very strange that it should not be doing. And so
Right.
basically, when we were at our final meeting, and some of the folks we were talking to, that were talking about xenoarchaeology, and it was like, that's actually what you're doing. You're not just doing archaeology, which is kind of the known archaeology realm of what you do, where we have prehistoric, we have historic. We're dealing with something that could be either very old or strangely out of place or something, when we deal with all the different hypotheses you have about Skinwalker Ranch, about what could be there. So it just puts it in a different category where you might apply different tools to it and different sciences to it that you don't do at a normal archaeological site. And you look for different things, because generally you wouldn't get into excuse me, I'm gonna turn around for a second. You don't get into, unless you're dealing with a nuclear site, you're not gonna do a prehistoric archaeological dig and break these out, right?
Right. Yep.
Unless there's risk of uranium, you're not gonna break out those kind of tools. And there's other tools that you could apply. So we want to apply these at every level, because you might be finding something that is very ancient. So it kind of just allows for a little broader range of what you might be dealing with and the questions that everybody asks. And this can go back to the such as the archaeological wars that Graham Hancock is in, and Flint Dibble is in, that they show on Joe Rogan, where you're dealing with this established, academic archaeology versus people that are asking other questions. Well, this is a realm that you can actually try to apply and answer those questions without a cutoff and without it being a conspiracy that, they're covering things up. You just look at it. So it broadens it to where you can include other tests and other data into what you're looking at. So
That is
essentially, yeah,
absolutely fascinating.
yeah, it's really interesting. I'm getting some crazy feedback right now.
Yeah, me
Is
too.
that me?
Sorry, my microphone's been acting really weird. I don't know why. I keep muting myself, and anytime I unmute myself, I get technical difficulties. Oh goodness. I was
Yeah, I
gonna
was gonna.
ask
Oh,
something
go ahead.
about that. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead,
So
Jonny.
I would kind of describe xenoarchaeology as being more of like a novel science, something that's still new, developing, and really not quite a settled version of science yet. Do you
But
think
let me
that?
tell you, it's
Ar-
not something that you'll study in a college.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Do
so
you
it's
think
not
that
something they
generally
apply.
speaking,
There is not a
archaeologists?
class on it. It's what you would apply if you went to a supposed um, crash site. If you went to a crash site, you would not be applying just archaeology. You might have an archaeologist there, but you need to be looking for more than just the material that you're familiar with, um, because it could be something that you don't recognize. Actually, they've talked about these crash sites in different books, where they end up littering them with aluminum and tin cans, after they leave, in order to disguise in case they left anything else behind. And one thing with this material that we've pulled out, it is very reminiscent of actually the sandstone and the mudstone and siltstone that's come out of the mesa. In fact, all the other guys wouldn't have recognized it. They would have thought it was just a rock, until you actually know what you're looking at when you're looking at something manufactured that nature can't make. Um, and then that's when all the tests came in that are so different than anything natural.
Right.
But that's where you apply that across the board. And what I want to do, and applying this at Mount Wilson Ranch as well as Skinwalker Ranch, look for these different anomalous things, and be open to the questioning and the hypothesis that there could be something that we don't necessarily know about or understand or know the nature of, but it is something that's not natural. So,
I
and
think
then
you're a
that,
trailblazer. You're a trailblazer and didn't even know it. I'm reading a sci-fi series right now, set many thousands of years in the future, and they have xenoarchaeologists as a major part of the story.
do they?
And I don't think I'd ever heard that term. And then
Yeah,
when it came up earlier, I'm like, holy crap, that's
yeah,
an important part of this series.
people have
Yeah.
tried to. Also, there was a paper written a long time ago that you could call it archaeology when you go to Mars or something like that. But that would more or less, you would be a exoarchaeologist, because that's off our
Exoarchaeologist. Yep.
planet. Xeno is
Yep.
strange to us here. Going to Mars and being an archaeologist, you're just an archaeologist looking at Martian things or for Martian things, not human things. Xenoarchaeology is strange on the Earth. And yeah, it is. It's a new thing. People don't talk about it. It's not going to be on anybody's resume. And I think the only place that where it's being practiced is at Skinwalker Ranch,
Yeah.
where we're
Well,
looking for.
it's not on resumes yet.
Not yet, yeah. But we're looking for the prehistoric and the historic, which is the reason I went to Skinwalker Ranch, right? To preserve their sites, to let them know what they had. Again, it's Brandon's ranch, and he could do what he wants with it. He wants to preserve everything that he has there. So I was
Mhm.
doing that for him, to give him his inventory so he knows what to work around to avoid, and also inform the story, right? Because it tells the history and the prehistory of that area. And man, it is rich. It is really, really rich, really intriguing. There's so many storylines that haven't been talked about yet.
Yeah. So,
Would you consider crash reconstruction to be really kind of part of archaeology in this sense?
A crash site reconstruction, meaning.
Like aviation crash, mechanical crashes, would that be something that the
Well, that's
tools of that
interesting. So
research would apply?
one very interesting thing that I just thought of, years ago, I was sent a sample. So I have I think my call name on Instagram or something is Pearl Snap Chris, and that's Pearl Snaps as in Pearl Snap shirts, right? So that goes back to another story where I promote Americana and alternative country music, and also sell vintage Pearl Snap
yeah.
shirts. But
Yeah.
because of that, yeah. So because of
Jason
that,
Isbell, man.
oh yeah, he's fantastic. Drive-by truckers.
You know it.
But so early on in that was in the early 2000s when I started doing that, and I have thousands of Pearl Snap shirts. But I had someone send me a sample, because I'm an archaeologist and do historic archaeology, and also know the history of fasteners and snaps. They sent me what they found that may have actually been Amelia Earhart's crash site, snaps from her jacket or shirt. And I
Oh.
identified what they were, sent them back to them, and that was for the Tigar project. that they're doing. And that was pretty fascinating to where it is an aerial crash site from the 30s, so very interesting that could be a real thing. And then you go ahead and apply it to let's say Roswell or Aztec or uh, whatever other site we want to say something may have crashed at in the past, then that's archaeology. That's generally historic archaeology. However, you're dealing with materials, possibly with materials that, like arts parts, that, well, no one's seen them before. You can't say if that is, like they've tried to say, well, that might be a byproduct or it might be a fuel rather than part of the hull. So you don't know what you're dealing with, whether it's the hubcaps or the steering wheel. You don't know how to identify that. And so this is just part of, well, how do you identify something? And this comes from archaeology. How do you identify something that isn't natural? And that's what you do. And that's what you really look for when you're just identifying flake stone or ground stone. You look at that stone, and I could be given 100 rocks from people that aren't trained in how to see it. And those are, well, we call them AFRs, which is just another effing rock. And what it is a rock that looks like it might have been flaked, or it could have been flaked in the road, mechanically flaked, but not by a human, or it could have been ground in a river over millions of years and it's still got rind on it. But you look for certain signs that tells you it was touched by a human, meaning it was modified by a human. And those are the things you look for, where you can prove that it's still natural, even though it might resemble an artifact, or was it actually touched by a human? But right now, applying that in xenoarchaeology, well, we don't know who touched what we're even looking at, who made it. And so it has to be very open to, again, looking at all kinds of different materials. But if you can peg it as natural, right? If you can find any signs on it that this is natural, this is natural, this is natural, then it takes it out of the realm of being manufactured. But if you're going down that path and checking all those boxes where this is unnatural, well, this could occur naturally. However, all these other boxes are checked, which take it out of that realm. Then you've got to keep looking at it to where we're not just going, nope, it's natural, I've never seen it before, and throw it aside. And that you would apply at a crash site like Roswell or anywhere else down in Brazil or wherever it is, wherever there might be any of these materials still left, then you apply not only archaeology, but xenoarchaeology to that to look for things, because you're also not just looking for actual material, but signals of the material or of something having been there, because it may have been a long time ago. We look at
Right.
you look at our history as humans and how far back it goes into the history of the earth. And we're pretty egocentric to think that, well, they're all just coming here now, right? When you got to go back in prehistory. Maybe these things, when you talk about biblical times and biblical sightings of different things, well, maybe those were stories about those happening. But then let's go back to a time when there was no one here to write that down or to draw it on the rock wall. And that's billions of years that this earth was here. So you might be looking at something that's not just in prehistoric time when you get back, which is, wonderful history of prehistoric and paleo Indians and all of that in North America is fantastic for our history. But when you go with geologic history and you're going back as the time of the dinosaurs or even further, that you've got to look at things really, really closely to find any resemblance of any of that. So
Right on. So to kind of segue that into Skinwalker Ranch, Johnny, I believe you wanted to kind of kick off the Skinwalker Ranch rabbit hole here. So Johnny, I'll turn it over to you to get that started.
Always throwing me on the spot. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, as we're getting into Skinwalker Ranch, you can't get into Skinwalker Ranch without talking about the first time going to Skinwalker Ranch. So can you tell us a little bit about what that was like for you and what that impact may have been?
yeah. So let's see. So Well, I met Tom and Candace. And this was a story where we met at a nearby secondhand store in Fort Duchesne. And by chance, I was coming there to help. My wife had purchased something. Candace was working there that day, and I was going there to help load it up into my trailer because it was a big armoire type piece. And then Tom came there to also help. And then he just happened to notice my hat, which was this hat right here, band Lucero. I was wearing that. Great alternative country band you should listen to. And he was like, Lucero, I love him. And I was like, I love it if somebody recognizes that so we can talk music. So we started talking a little bit of music, and then it went from there to that I do archaeology and that Candace does anthropology and archaeology. And then they asked us, are you guys like, you okay with the supernatural or anything like that, and we're like, yeah, I kind of like it. Why? And they said, well, we're caretakers at this, this ranch. You ever heard of it? Skinwalker Ranch. And I was like, yeah, I've heard of it. It'd been years since I had thought about it. And then right behind me was the book on the bookshelf, The Hunt for the Skinwalker, which I had read that previous. This was, over 10 years prior, probably read that book, and actually went, to the outskirts of the ranch. But so they invited us to dinner. And it ended up taking a few months because I worked a lot of times on the road to get together. But it was probably 6 or 8 months later that they invited us, hiding my wife and myself, to go to dinner there. And so we were talking about it, and when we were at the store, Junk in the Trunk, I asked them. I said, "Has anybody been doing? Who's doing your archaeology there?" And Candace said, "Nobody. We should be doing it." And again, I think this is during season 3. And she'd been doing what she could there, and I said, "I'll do it." It's private land, so given that, if you guys understand the laws, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to protect any sites. They don't have to worry about anything as far as prehistory goes there, or history. They could just blow it out and not worry about it. Well, I said, I'd love to come and survey for you. And so I was getting a team together. And so they invited us over to talk about that, um, and to have dinner. And so we got ready, went over there, and it was pretty exciting. It was like, finally we get to go behind these gates we've heard about for so long. And so went in, and my wife thought it was pretty interesting. She thought, this is someplace we are always going to go, is kind of what she said to me. And we went in there, and we're checking it out, looking at the mesa on the long drive in once we got in the gates, and then came up to the homestead and came in, and they welcomed us in. Very loving people, caring people. Came in, and then mixed up a cocktail and started playing foosball and talking and making dinner. And while dinner was cooking on the stove, they started showing us around Homestead 1, and then we were talking. And then they said, hey, we've been thinking about it. We'd like you to come out and do these archaeological surveys out here. There was a point where Tom was showing me something in one room, and Candace and Heidi were in another room, and it came up about some ancestry of my wife, and then another story that I can't go into right now happened at that time, which was pretty surreal at that point. So we just spent our first visit inside Homestead 1 visiting, and then had again, we filmed about it, but probably the most um, intimate and insane encounter with some things there, some objects there, that are very deeply embedded in my wife's history, heritage. And so it was very just kind of blew our minds about that. And then she was sitting in a chair, not even having touched a cocktail, but felt beside herself with just what had just kind of happened. It was pretty crazy time. And then we ended up filming about it. It's not something I think I have permission to necessarily go too far into at this time, but it was pretty incredible. And then probably within another 3 or 4 months, I came out there with another archaeologist, and we started walking the place with Tom and Candace, and just kind of started at the south end, walking through the ranch. Doing basically it's a pedestrian survey. You just walk back and forth through the sites, and documenting it of what they had. And I'm probably about 50% through with the whole ranch at this time. Things got a little bit sidetracked when we started finding material, when we started doing that. But that was kind of the first visit, and then the second visit was, well, getting on the ground and walking, and
Mhm.
finding things.
Fantastic. And so did you find that when you finally got physically onto the ranch, did it kind of live up to its expectation? I mean, it sounds like the ranch kind of did say, at the very least, "Hey, how you doing?" or something.
Well, it
But
said it said a lot more than that. It was like a big hug. It was interesting. It has a lot of what I expected to see, but then so for that first year of surveying things, of surveying the property, we're walking through all the sagebrush, all the trees. You don't go around the trees, you go right through them and look for anything in there. And there was some really good stuff found in there, that I would expect to find in that area. What we found later, once we started filming, once they invited me to film with them, and that was basically, um the executive producer, Jason Shook, said, "Hey, why don't you come and look at the spoils, and let's screen it a little bit better than we've done in the past. You can look at everything we've gotten out before because it was still on the ground, and you can see what's coming out with these new borings that we're doing." So we set that up and started doing that, and then from there, it was supposed to go to where I was doing these other things to talk about the prehistory there, but there is fantastic stuff that coincides. If you, yeah, I mean, Chris Bartell, and he and I have worked together closely ever since I got on the ranch, where we got in contact with each other. He had been documenting, um, really diligently and awesomely, a lot of what was out there, where he found it, pictures of it, and all the information I really need to take his data and actually put it together with what I was currently finding. So we didn't lose anything from then, even though some of the artifacts are actually gone because it just disappeared when they changed hands. Some were lost that were left there. However, I have the pictures of them. I can identify them, and I know where they came from, and they were all surface finds. So we really haven't lost a lot of the data, but that, in conjunction with new finds during um, filming and off season, when I'm just going out, I'll go out and walk with security and Eric or whoever wants to go walk. We'll go walk and do some archaeology and find sites, find artifacts, show them what I maybe found before, and there's spectacular archaeology out there that shows an incredible prehistory, which we filmed. We filmed some on. We're supposed to film more on, so I can't say too much about it. But it is, now that I've seen uh, what is out there, it is like, I call it a candy land for archaeology, because it has a little bit of everything out there, and it's
Mhm.
fantastic. And that was the best way I could say it, because it's like, over here, there's a little bit of this, over here, there's a little bit of this. And then, oh, why don't we find some xenoarchaeology stuff in the mesa? Like, what's missing? There's nothing missing, um, where there's such a rich history there. That, again, hopefully we'll get a chance to go deeper into it with this next filming, and I can really, really give the prehistory of Skinwalker Ranch its due, and its respect, and telling what is going on there, because it's pretty incredible. And again, I've seen so much of the basin that
Mhm.
I know what's out there, and I know that it is a very sensitive, targeted location for certain activities versus other areas. Because you can walk a lot of places and not find an artifact. There's not artifacts everywhere. And
Yeah.
it just happens that humans congregate in the same areas over thousands of years for some reason. So it's rich there and it's rich in other places, but there's a really interesting mix. Again, we're telling some of the story and we have more to tell with the upcoming season 7. There was a lot more found. There was stuff even found in the last couple of days that I'm like dying to tell people about. So
Well,
it's really,
the
really great stuff.
ranch is kind of the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
It really is, and that's what's great. Erosion is an archaeologist's friend because you go out there and let's say we're filming in a certain location on the site and you get everybody walking around and you're really not doing anything but walking around, but you're breaking that surface, you're breaking that crust where there's no vegetation. And then here comes the rains, right? And that exposes some more of the prehistory without having to excavate, and new things are sitting right there on the surface. We've been out there and there's a place where I'm not seeing anything, and then 2 months later there's something there. And it didn't magically show up, it just eroded and showed me some more to the story because there's a lot. Just a lot to tell, and hopefully, and there will be quite a bit more told again coming up. Hopefully, I'm not sure when it even premieres, but there's a lot more to tell, and then there's even more that we just don't get a chance to get to. Maybe we can even do that on the Insiders or something. I can get some releases and be able to just do nuggets there, of really
Yeah.
rich prehistory that's going on.
That's a great idea.
I w-
Insiders
I
would
would
love
like to
that.
do it. Oh, it'd be
Yeah, that'd be cool.
fantastic. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good
And
time
we
for a plug to remind people if they're not already a member of the Insiders. Not sponsored, but we're all members. We're all somewhat
Yeah.
active. I'm probably the least active one here, but if you're not already a member, go check that out. Sign up for Insiders. It's worth the small investment.
and
Oh
to
yeah.
find
I
out where
mean,
to find out where to do that, folks, just go to www.skinwalker-ranch.com/insiders, and that will tell you all about it. There's basically 2 tiers of membership. There's one that you can go monthly, which I've been a member since the beginning of the Insider program, and I'm still doing the monthly thing, which means I don't have my exclusive Insider T-shirt. Damn it! But you can also do a yearly membership, which does get you that really cool Insider T-shirt and all kinds of great perks. Like we've talked about before, you get chances to do Q&As with the team at Skinwalker Ranch, and it's just one of the best online communities of people like me, John, and Johnny that we just have curious minds, and we're so fascinated by this amazing phenomena that occurs out there at Skinwalker Ranch. So we're definitely major endorsement for the Skinwalker Ranch Insider community and the Insider team. It's one of the best investments I've ever made, and I mean that most sincerely. So definitely. Yep.
yeah, I'm just getting started getting involved there. I think they kept me a secret for a year and a half or something. And I was only getting used to it, last summer to even be involved at all. And now I've got a space on it, Chris's Digs, and I'm going to start putting some things up there that I can talk about. And I can go deeper into the analysis of what has been shown, or other things, or whatever even the insiders want to hear about. We can deep dive on that kind of stuff. So I think the insiders is pretty cool, and they're the insiders are part of the investigation. I mean,
Absolutely.
I've literally seen Eric reading from the insiders and thinking about that, and we talk about the things everybody does to where, in my opinion, you never know where the next idea is going to come from or information or whatever it is, like who's going to play a part in this investigation because it could be anybody, and
Yeah.
I realize that on the cruise too, as well as people and their ideas and what they think about, and that everyone plays a part in this. And if you just get involved at that level, it's there might be a reason you get involved, and it's to give your take on something, and who knows where that might lead.
Could not agree more. Could not agree more. So, Chris, tell us of the time that you spent on the ranch. Have you ever encountered any kind of strange phenomena that goes hand in hand with a lot of people that have been out to the ranch? Any UAP sightings or anything like that you can tell us about that you might have seen?
Uh, I've seen absolutely nothing. So And I think the ranch is playing a joke on me. What it did, what it showed us the first night we were there, basically was enough. And then what it presented to me out of the mesa, which some of the things we've talked about, and then there is a plethora of things that I haven't talked about, because there just was never enough time on film to get to those things. But from the ceramic-like material to more metal, very interesting metal that came out, and the nickel, and then there's a list of other things that I've analyzed that have to be presented, and some of them will be presented. I think that that's what the ranch shows me, material things, because that's what I need to be shown. I don't think a light in the sky is going to make me think anything differently. I'd love to see that werewolf. That would be awesome. But I don't think I'm going to.
Yeah,
Um,
careful what you wish for, you know?
I was going to say,
I'm
Jonny
okay.
might
I'm
have
okay
other
with
words
seeing
on
an
that.
upright. Yeah, I'm okay with seeing the howl growler out
I
there.
mean, it's cool.
Yeah, but and I've been through the trees, and I'm running through those trees at night looking for things, chasing the rockets or whatever. I'm thrilled by it, but I'm there to protect the site itself. I consider Skinwalker Ranch a site as a whole, and I'm there to protect it, and so maybe it understands that, but it hasn't shown me anything. The closest I came was I was after hours sitting talking to the producer, Jason Shook, and I had to leave. I left the ranch, and 10 minutes later, he texts me and said he left about 1 minute after I did and was standing outside looking up, and there was an orb floating there for like 5 minutes, and he was looking right at it. And I really do want to see one, and I missed it just by that much. And so maybe I'm not going to get to see one. Maybe I will. I'm always looking up at the sky now, and even when I'm not there, because I live in the Uintah Basin, I'm looking over the same sky basically, but I haven't seen anything yet. But I know people that have. It's crazy, really crazy what people have seen.
Yeah, the ranch is really I guess the big thing that I would say is anytime I encounter somebody that says, "Oh, it's all just fluff for the TV show. There's nothing really truly extraordinary out there. I mean, it's scripted and all that stuff." Now we all know better. We know that it's not a scripted show, and we know that just by the fact that you guys are gathering the data that you have gathered, not just with the archaeology stuff, but the stuff that Eric and Travis and everybody else on the team has been able to document, and the various sensor platforms that have captured truly amazing anomalous things.
Mhm.
So it's something that for me, where my journey began with it was I first heard about Skinwalker Ranch shortly after I moved to Utah here. So this is going back to, I moved out to Utah in 94, but in 96, I want to say it was either the Deseret News or the Salt Lake Tribune ran a story on the Sherman family, who, of course, we know all about them. They're the ones that are spoken about in the Hunt for the Skinwalker book. And so I remember reading that story and being really fascinated. And then the book, The Hunt for the Skinwalker, came out along about 2006 or thereabouts. And I read it cover to cover and was just blown away. And then years later, when they start the docuseries, and John and I were kind of the same frame of mind when we heard that they were doing a docuseries, because I'm one of these guys that I look at all of these like ghost hunting shows that are on Discovery and TLC, and I'm like, oh, that's all just it's sensational. It's just kind of crazy stuff. And so I thought the Hunt for the Skinwalker, or the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, was going to be kind of in that same vein. And I'm so happy that it wasn't. Skinwalker Ranch, the docuseries in particular, is there's nothing else out there that is like it. And I've been fortunate enough in these last several years to get to know a lot of the people that work at the ranch, to get to be, friends with Caleb and with Travis and with, of course, Jay Stratton and Chris Bartell, who's one of my favorite people. Chris, got to give a big shout out to Chris, tall drink of water that he is. and and of course, getting to meet you at Phenomicon last year was great as well, Chris. So that was quite awesome. But I've just I think that this is really what happens at Skinwalker Ranch, and what I mean by that is the research that is going on there is truly on the cutting edge of science. And not maybe just the cutting edge of science as we're learning, but also on the cutting edge of archaeology, right? Because we are learning things And that's, I guess, the big thing that's always frustrated me about mainstream academia is that they seem so quickly to want to close the book that anything could potentially change. It's like, they're just very rigid in how they view things, and it's like, no, humanity, there cannot be civilizations that existed in the United States prior to this time that would have, and that would have had these kind of items found in their culture. And it's like, a lot of times what we're hearing now is that the archaeology that's being discovered by a lot of independents, it is starting to show a lot of these great things. I mean, just right there in the Uintah Basin, if you've lived there for any length of time, like it sounds that you have, there's all kinds of legends out there of, not obviously just the Aztec gold, Montezuma sending his gold northward, and but also there's a lot of, there's a lot of LDS religion history out there, like the Lost Roads Cave, and Book of Mormon culture that allegedly may have gone on in that area at that time. So, but all kinds of really just fascinating stuff, and the fact that you get to see some of that firsthand is just it's got to be exciting. I mean, I always wanted to be. I had an interest in archaeology until I learned that I would have to confront snakes, and I don't like snakes. Spiders don't bother me, but snakes is a deal breaker unless I can bring a sidearm and, you know, dispatch the snakes, because I do
Are you
not like
saying you're
snakes.
Indiana Jones? Do you need a whip?
I would need something,
Snakes,
man. Big shotgun to get rid of those snakes, man.
yeah, snakes shut people down. I think there was a site I was on doing a survey in California, and everyone was running into rattlesnakes everywhere, and we probably saw 50 within about 30 minutes. And so we all went back out. We're done here. We're not going in here. The snakes can have it. And so you get used to them. Especially those little pygmies are pretty fun. They're feisty little guys that are out here. Um, I had to fight somebody for a mesa on a mesa top once, two pygmies, about this
Oh,
long, and they're the size of a worm, but man, they were mad. Um, but regarding that, all the stuff, the legends out here, and the stories, the Lost Roads mines. I am, you know, almost first person with that. That legend actually goes back into my wife's ancestry as well. The
nice.
my I guess my children's great grandfather, or Aaron Daniels, who knew Caleb Rhodes, who
Yeah,
saw the
yeah.
mines. It's his journal writings that are in the book. So I've looked at all of that, and I mean, he, again, this is basically my family's ancestry. If these are true documented journal writings, then he's seen those things, and they're right up here. And I've looked at a lot of that different stuff. It's very exciting stuff. Um, the stuff at Skinwalker Ranch, covering such vast stuff with the technology that those guys are looking at, where you've got Omnitech there looking at different things. You've got what Eric comes up with, which is incredible tech, all the different ideas and applying it. You know, you're talking about academia. They have a finite budget. They don't mess around a lot of different things, and so they can only do certain things, and they might go from the known to the unknown, but they're not going to go very far. But there are people even within that, not necessarily that realm of academia, but they're talking about maybe we didn't dig deep enough. And
Mhm.
that's kind of the thing where I've got with my slogan of we dig deeper. Why? Because, well, no archaeologist is going to sit there at a borehole that's 70 feet under a bedrock mesa and 250 feet in and think you're going to pull an artifact out, right? And so I was sitting there basically going through the motions of, yes, I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to screen this, and I am going to look for artifacts, but I don't expect to find anything more than maybe a neat magnetic rock, right? Or something that might glow. A cool mineral might come out, but I expected everything to be natural that came out of the mesa. And so when it happened that we found the material, I was, well, first I thought that they were hazing me, because I thought somebody threw something in here and they're just seeing if I'm looking in the spoils at all, and I'm earning my pay, which was pretty low, is pretty low. Or the, somebody threw something in there in order to get one over on everybody, but it didn't. It was deep within there. And I know that because there were buckets that I had set aside that no one had touched, and I found more in those. and looking at these when you do analysis when you have fragments, and we have uh, multiple fragments, which you saw in season 6. Well, you analyze those and you analyze them together, and different things that I'll talk about in season 7, that how they come together, that you can see how they were, how they were in the mesa, meaning their environment that they were in, their erosional or depositional environment. Um, so we're going way deeper on anything and applying LIDAR countless times, GPR countless times, other studies, other tests, all this, really tons of funding thrown into looking at the paranormal.
Mhm.
I mean, they talk about it, there's government funding or whatever, but Bigelow was looking at the paranormal. He was looking at crazy supernatural stuff. He was doing seance type things there, trying to contact the other side, all these different crazy things. That's what they're looking at. And it's all together in the UAP. But to be together with a team where we're actually taking this very serious scientifically and trying to apply all the scientific methods to this place to find out what is truly going on is really neat. And then to actually extract material. So it's not just video footage. It's not just things on cameras, sights, lights in the sky that you're trying to analyze, but we actually have material evidence of things there that aren't just prehistoric, that are anomalous. It's very exciting to be doing that. But the way academia looks at the history, again, I think it's a site in Texas where in Texas, they've admitted that maybe originally they weren't digging deep enough. And that goes with budget. You basically go to a certain point and you're like, there's not going to be anything below this point. Well, I'm going to go one more 10-centimeter level, and that's it. And as long as it's negative, that's where you stop. And then you move on to your next one, because you don't have a big budget to just keep going and going and going down on the earth. But if you go to deep time and deep deposition and erosion, things are going to be buried a lot deeper. If it really is beyond, if you could say, a cataclysm or something, you're going to have a very deep horizon of nothing, right? And then underneath it, you might find that next layer, excuse me. So it's just to be open to that question, what if there is something down there? And again, so they went with their methods into the mesa. Well, we're dealing with this cave right here. People have these ideas right here. We found this with the GPR right here. Let's go around it to put more tech in to determine it. Well, what if there's something in the spoils? Let's start looking at it. And then they found the metal, and then they found the green jelly. And then it's like, well, let's actually look a little bit closer. Let's put an archaeologist on this. And then we found a lot more stuff. Again, some of it's only been talked about. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty surreal. Again, the night we found things, I think that was a turning point for everybody, where I couldn't sleep. I haven't slept right since then, generally. And a lot of other people were that way, where it really kept us up at night, to where we're going, wait a minute, these aren't just lights in the sky. And this is actually material. It's hard evidence. It's pretty amazing to be sitting here at this point going, well, what if? Well, let's keep digging, just keep digging. Let's see what we got.
And it's that what if that keeps driving you, right? I mean, just the possibilities of what you could potentially find as you go deeper into that mesa and get more of uh, the sensor equipment and stuff in there. I mean, I can't even imagine what those moments are like when you have one of those big discoveries, and then it's like, this is amazing, but as Travis likes to say, the more we learn, the more questions we have. And it's just it's really I can't imagine what that's got to be like to experience that in first person. That's got to be cool.
Yeah, there's man, an amazing correlation of things that are going on. One thing they never talk about are synchronicities that go on, and that's something that'll never be touched on the show. But man, it's incredible the amount of synchronicities that go on. But the correlation of different data, um, off the site is really incredible. And there's other things that I'm studying things on the site. I go back and study people that have been at the site, the books they write, the other documentaries, the docu-series and other episodes, because there's not like a vast um, volume of every encounter everybody's had, that I can just read and digest. But I have to look at it from uh, um, an archivist and an archaeological's viewpoint of how does this relate in prehistory? How does it relate to the prehistory? Or do these actual prehistoric sites that are on the site relate to the orbs that are in the sky or other experiences that people have? What's the proximity to each one? And so I'm looking at all of these different things with um, a historian's or an archaeologist's eye of how do these relate. And that's something we're working on now. But I'm finding even more things that I don't think people have seen, and different analyses on different sites that are at the ranch that are pretty spectacular. And again, I've seen a lot of the rock art around the basin. I've been all over 9 Mile. One of my greatest times was when I found rock art in 9 Mile that no one had ever found before. A panel
Wow.
right by the Great Hunt, and it just happened to be one that somebody missed. And I was like, finally, I'm not re-recording the site. I'm writing a new site record. This one's mine with my name on it, and that's a fun thing for an archaeologist to do. Um, but to be finding this stuff, to be putting it together, to paint the picture of history and prehistory at the ranch, it's a phenomenal opportunity. And thinking of opportunities that I've had when I was going through the spoils and I'm rinsing it, and you're trying to actually do it in cadence with them bringing the spoils out. And so I could get it cleaned up, and it's kind of quick, and camera time and all this kind of stuff. It's really hard to do. And you got to be fairly quick, but that really didn't give me the opportunity to sort all the artifacts, right? Or sort through all the residue, all the rocks. I got all the dirt off of them, and then I make a look, but you've got to let it dry. And then you actually do need to have it in a laboratory where you're looking at it closer. You have the proper lighting. You have maybe magnifying glass, maybe a microscope to really look closer at different things. And out in the bright sunlight with cameras on you, and they're looking for a shot. It's a lot of pressure, actually.
Yeah.
But I realized the opportunity I had. I wasn't doing this, just to get this site protected and move on to the next one and protect this site, which is what you do in cultural resource management, where you're like, well, let's avoid this. Let's not avoid this one. Let's get the data out of that one. Okay, there's no more data to get. You can go ahead and destroy that site. We have an opportunity at Skinwalker Ranch with Brandon loving the prehistory and so much backing behind it of what he wants, that it's an opportunity of a lifetime to be able to document what is going on there,
Yeah.
because they could say, we're not going to do any of that and you're not going to get that data. And then to have someone apply it to the borings in the mesa and go, we're
Mhm.
actually going to have someone look at this, and we might have something really, really strange there that
Mhm.
could possibly change history as we know it, right? That's an opportunity that
Yeah.
truly is a question. I have to take it really seriously. And that's why once I got into Homestead One and turned it into an arc lab, that I had to not go through the spoils from each layer, which was like these 30-foot layers basically of the bore. Um, I had to go through it not once, twice, but 3 times,
Wow.
because if there was something I missed, right, it mattered that much. So that I had to not just prove that I was identifying a flake or I was identifying another piece of the ceramic material or a piece of metal. I was identifying that every single rock that came out was either natural or unnatural or modified or something strange. And if it was strange, I put it aside. If I couldn't call it sandstone or iron oxide, or gypsum, then it got put aside to analyze it closer. And that's where we came up with a lot more artifacts. So it's the opportunity basically of like, well, it's just another prehistoric site. And that just is more data to add to more data. You know, we already know people were here in prehistory, and it goes back to so far. And you're not really generally going to get a ton of data out of an archaeological site. But this
Yeah.
opportunity is just, we don't even know what this site means. You know, is it something from the 60s or 70s? Is it a testing thing? Is it a crashed UAP from who knows when? Is it somebody put something in there back in the historic period? We don't know what it is and what if something was covered up. We just don't know. So we have to take it really, really seriously, and every stone counts to know what it is.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Brandon has brought you onto the team just speaks volumes of how serious Brandon is, and like you said, wanting to preserve the heritage and also just preserve and being good stewards of the ranch, of the land that's out there. I mean, there's how many times do we hear from people that say, "Oh, just take some dynamite and blow that bitch up," speaking about the mesa, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's kind of like not at all how you preserve anything. Yeah, let's take some, quarter six of dynamite and yeah, no, I don't think so. So it's good for me from my standpoint as being a fan of the docuseries and just of the overall research that you guys are doing out there, to hear that you are going to such great lengths to make sure that you're not just documenting stuff as you go, but preserving as much of the stuff that you find out there at the ranch as well, and trying to be as non-invasive as you can when the situation requires for it, but also just letting the science and the data lead you along the way, as I think where it really needs to be. And it's so makes me so happy to hear that you guys are all doing that from the top down. And that just speaks to what a great organization you guys have out there at the ranch from Brandon on down. And it was really cool to see you brought onto the docuseries last year. It was kind of cool to see that they now have a full-time archaeologist there while the research is going on there, to have somebody to say, hey, let's take a closer look. We may want to look at these spoils. You never know what might be in there. And so I think it's only a great thing, and I think it's going to yield some truly extraordinary results as you guys keep going forward in that investigation out there. So, any John or Johnny, do you have any questions about Skinwalker before we move on?
No, I just wanted to make the comment that when you go into archaeology, it seems like, when you're going when you're at a site, at a dig, you might run into some things that are unexpected, but you generally kind of know what you're in for. It seems like a place like the ranch is, well, you might know what you're in for as far as stuff that ought to be there, like some of the artifacts that you would expect to be in that type of area. And then you come across something truly anomalous that has absolutely no business being there. Like that kind of has to enter your mind now. You're like, okay, not only am I'm looking to catalog the interesting things that we expect to be there or might occasionally see, but you also have to keep an eye out for something that has no business at all being there. And like you mentioned, being able to recognize the small pieces of ceramic. If someone else had been looking through that, they might not have even have noticed those.
Yeah, and so that does matter at every turn of the activities that we do out there, every bit of the dirt that is moved in any way, we have to document it prior to doing it, while doing it, and I have to look at what's coming out to see, is there something that's can just be prehistory as we know it, right, or something that's strange? And if it's something that's strange, if we can't identify that it's just natural and understand how it got there, um, then it has to be documented closely, because it could be something that we see is somewhat natural. Um, but why is it at this certain location? And you just don't know what it could be. Having these guys, yeah, back the idea of documenting the prehistory that is there, and having it was Jason Shook that said, come out and do the screening. We wouldn't know what we know now without that, and get these clues, right? We're only getting clues. We do have to get in there into the mesa to really see. We got to find it in situ, in place. We can't just blast it, at least not like that, because you never know. One of those stones, they were higher up on the mesa at one time, and they may have been outward facing, and they may have some inscription on them, or they may have some rock art on them. And then if we blow that rock up and don't capture that, then we have lost some information. Or if we do destroy an artifact, so it has to be an archaeological excavation to actually get into the mesa, and it just has to be very meticulous, because that's the only way we're going to prove anything. We could blast that mesa and get in there, but if we just blow things up and blow things apart, it won't stand up to scrutiny. And that's what you have to find. You have to find it properly, and you have to document it properly. And that's something we can play with when you look at the Lost Roads mines, or, all those things that deal with the mountains up here. Nothing has ever been documented up there in situ, in place, and documented properly. It's all been sitting on somebody's coffee table or somebody's story down at the coffee shop. And there is no documented evidence of that being up there with the Aztecs, Montezuma, the Spanish. There's no documented proof of it. I would love there to be, but all there are books and stories at this time, and artifacts that have been out of place of where they're supposedly had been found. And then you've got the tree glyphs and things like that, but there's not the true evidence. And I would love to document that. I would love to be one. If you find something, call me, we'll document it properly and prove that it's there, because the things that supposedly have been up there haven't been documented correctly, and they never have to this point been documented correctly, honestly. And once someone has seen something, it's quickly lost. Someone
Right.
either takes it away or it just disappears somehow. Um,
Yeah.
and
Just fell in
so
their
we can't
pocket.
prove that, but it's a rich history. And again, it's in my wife's family's ancestry. For me to be able
Mhm.
to prove that, I mean, my children's, blood has seen those things up there, if they really exist, if they do. So I'd love that opportunity, but you have to do things properly. Um, I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to do this, with Candace and Tom, and say, hey, let's document there, is to protect the prehistory, which is why I got into archaeology. And it was to promote that people need to protect the prehistory, not just, go and find artifacts and loot a site. That doesn't help anything. Everything
Right.
has to be in place. It has to be mapped in place. The artifact itself sitting on someone's coffee table is basically meaningless. We all know that Clovis was out here. But if you had a Clovis site, and you had a point over here, and you had something else over here and over here, it would be the most amazing site to be able to document that. And that's what you get your information from. So it's actually, I like to talk about how you do document things, and that if you do find something, take a picture of it, take a GPS point, and then go tell an archaeologist so it can be documented correctly. If it's on private lands, on your own, that's your own property, that's your own thing. But it's on public lands, help people understand the prehistory. And don't promote the looting thing and everything. So that whole thing, because it's a big thing that people do, they collect, they pick things up, and the stuff will never be seen there again. And
Right.
we'll lose that opportunity to learn about human history, which is what we really do need all the artifacts for, but not in,
Mhm.
a mason jar on a shelf somewhere. We need them in
Yeah.
place or in a museum, and
Well,
then we can study them, and academia can look at those things,
yeah.
and write these things down and learn more.
Well, after we wrap up today's show, Chris, I want to talk to you about something that Roger, the gentleman who unfortunately can't be with us today, he's our fourth member of our team here, and the co-creator of the podcast with me. Uh, some stuff that he and I have happened upon up in the hills of the Uintas that specifically tie into your family history. I think that I would love to bring you up to speed on and tell you a little bit about. So
I'm
we'll, we'll,
dying to
we'll
hear.
so we'll talk about that after we finish up here. But speaking of Robert Bigelow, who you mentioned a short while ago with Skinwalker Ranch, he
Yeah.
was connected. He was connected with another property that you have also spent some time on, and of course that would be Mount Wilson over there in it's kind of like the Nevada type area as well. What can you tell us about your adventures out there on Mount Wilson Ranch?
Yeah, Mount Wilson Ranch is great. So Jeff McBurney owns Mount Wilson Ranch. It's over by Pioche, Nevada. Outlaw, gold mining, silver mining area, Wild West. Pretty interesting. His ranch is incredible as far as archaeology and history goes. It's got its own saloon on it. They've got like motel rooms. You can go there and stay there. The prehistory is really, really interesting. They were handed down artifacts, and it might have been in a cache where a collection of basically ceremonial obsidian points, really intricately made, not broken, beautiful. You'd almost think they're like recreations, but they're fantastically done. And Jeff has actually found them in situ himself, one of the pieces.
Nice.
So I do know that they were out on there, because I was looking at them like, are these recreations? Because they're amazing. I mean, they're this long, a handful of them are that big, and they're beautiful. You've got all kinds of different obsidian. Um, and there were a lot of them were found in a certain area down by what they call the meadow at his site, where there is some stones there that you actually can feel the energy, at least. And I don't do an energetic thing. You can feel an energy there, and they were found right by there. And they call that the portal area. Um, but it was owned by Robert Bigelow. He bought it right around the same time that he bought Skinwalker Ranch. He rarely talks about it. In fact, I think he's only talked about it once on a podcast, on an interview with Jeffrey Mishlove. And I just happened to catch it and that he talked about it. So my history there was to come down and help him identify what his archaeology was there, Jeff himself. So
Mhm.
he would know what sites he has there. And he could protect his sites, and he could have tours there, and he would know what stuff he has and what things date to. And that's why I went there. There's a great cave. They call it the Shaman's Cave. That's up the slope from there, going up to Mount Wilson. It's a little walk a ways from there. It's got a very interesting energy about it too, and some really intricate artifacts that are associated with it as well. But Mount Wilson has a really strange thing going on. They kind of think of it as like almost like the sister site to Skinwalker Ranch. Things have been seen there. They had it on the Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, and the guys saw some weird things. They saw some strange eyes, and everybody got scared on the film crew. Um, and but Jeff is more than welcome for anybody to come there. That's the great thing about it, is anybody can go to Mount Wilson. You can't go to Skinwalker Ranch. So you can go there and stay with Jeff. You can test things out. They've seen things in the saloon. But the artifact collection there, the history there is pretty amazing. The historic period, really, really interesting there. I went there to tell about the prehistory there, and was on the Sam and Colby, a movie they made. I didn't know it was going to be a movie till after we filmed there. I thought it was going to be like a podcast thing, and then it ended up being like a feature film. And told them about the prehistory, and there's something there. If you watch that, which they don't have it at the theaters anymore. They released it at the theaters, and they don't have it even on YouTube. I have it like a sign in to watch it again. But they came to the ranch, wanted to check it out, and were kind of almost like associating it with Skinwalker Ranch. And I told them, this isn't Skinwalker country. That's Navajo. This is Paiute. It's a different area, but there is something there. And over the days they were there, they connected with something, and they got a message back that I thought was very interesting, that I'm seeing a theme running through a lot of people's messages that they get. And Robert Bigelow was scared away from there. They tell the story of him seeing this towering figure. I stayed in the same motel room that he stayed in there, just to see if anything would happen. And he had some shadow figure that came above him that was like a shaman, and told him to get out. He left. So he was scared away from there. But maybe he was looking at Mount Wilson Ranch and Skinwalker Ranch for the wrong reason. I don't know. But basically, Sam and Colby came away, and it was a message that I think has a lot of merit. And it was basically, we are all one, and take care of this world. It was almost like an environmental message to me. That's a very simple one, and it has a lot of merit because they they went into it like trying to scare and thrill everybody, talking about skinwalkers and different things. And I was, and maybe do these different things that are sensational and spooky. They do ghosty things. Um,
Right.
but that's really not a scary message. Well, it is a scary message if you really think about what it means. It means protect the earth and change your ways, because all of us could change how we treat the earth. Um, and that means the animals, and that means the vegetation and the dirt itself and everything else that's on this earth, because we only have one. And I think that was really interesting. And so I came away, because I didn't. They went up and they got that message at the shaman's cave where they put on headset. I'll send you guys a link so you can see it. Um, they put on the head. One guy put on earmuffs, and then
Hmm.
another guy was asking questions. Not earmuffs, but it makes a sound where he can't hear the other guy, and the other guy asks questions, and then you hear something maybe through a radio frequency, and then you say what it is, and it all came together as that kind of a message up in the shaman's cave. And I didn't see that until the movie. And to me, it was so dramatic because it was such a simple message that people know. Everybody knows, and they just ignore it. As simple as recycling, right? And not using plastic bags. Um, People ignore that message. So it's not a spooky message, and it's not telling you anything more than, there is a protective energy there, and that they call the shaman, and maybe it's from prehistory, and it's saying protect the earth. And maybe that's the same message that other people get in other places. I think that it does come across, that, we maybe don't prize our world as much as we should.
Hmm.
We've looked out in space. There isn't another one like it, that we can see or that we can get to. Um, and I think that might be one of the messages that's coming across, from Mount Wilson Ranch. I think it's really interesting. I think everybody should go there, especially people that are interested in Skinwalker Ranch, because um, you can have your own experience there. You can do your own investigation there and see what's going on. But the artifacts are fantastic. I mean, they are museum quality. I do believe they're ceremonial, so I do think that it's a ceremonial site in nature, at this location where they were found, in prehistory, possibly. We need to do some obsidian hydration on them to actually get them dated, but I don't want to do that because they're such beautiful pieces. Um, but I think they're actually ceremonial because they span the. When you look at projectile points, the way they're constructed and their shapes determine the period they come from. Basically, you've got different temporal periods that demonstrate when they were created and when they were used, and then they go from bigger to smaller, kind of over time, with spear points to atlatls to bows and arrows. And these ones are all gigantic spear points that were probably most likely made in the Archaic period, um, or later. Um, but they resemble different periods, and they're all found together. So I think that in that way they were ceremonial, that they were being created to show different time periods, but they were all created nearly at the same period in a cache for like an offering, like a shaman's offering. Um, but I can't say more because I didn't find them in place. I haven't found one myself in place, and I only know that they were found on the ranch because Jeff found one himself, in place. Most of the others he was given or inherited from people that were there before, because he bought it from Bigelow himself. And then afterwards, those artifacts were given to him. But it's an incredible place. You should all go check out.
Yeah, it's on my list of places I want to go to. Overall, I wasn't a huge fan of the Beyond Skinwalker Ranch series, but the episodes they did where they focused on Mount Wilson Ranch were really, really fascinating and really, really interesting to me. And I've talked to people that have been there, and they all basically substantiate a lot of the things that they talked about on Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. So it's definitely on my list of places I want to go to. And my understanding is that you actually have to go by uh, Area 51 to get there. And of course, I've been out to Rachel, Nevada, and that whole area before, and I've been looking for an excuse to go back. So I might be able to convince my wife to go with me some
Looking at an
weekend to go stay
excuse
out
to go
there.
back to Area 51? Is that proof you came from there?
Guaranteed not. No. No.
Yeah, you get near Area 51. It's a great place to go and check out, and you can consider it like a paranormal retreat. Very welcoming, very nice place to stay. I mean, it's the saloon itself just to go there and have a shot, and hang out with Jeff for a little while is worth the trip. It's a beautiful place to go. Very, very different environment than Skinwalker Ranch. So, I yeah, can't recommend it enough.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely gonna look into that one. So, of course, me and John here, we're members of the Hitchhiker band with Travis Taylor and John's dad, Jay Stratton. So, of course, we're big music fans. And when I got to meet you at Phenomicon this last year, Chris, I found out how big of a music fan you are. So, let's just kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about music and your passion for music. And earlier you'd mentioned some of the alternative country and stuff, and I got to tell you, my son has turned me on to some really cool indie artists. And I don't know if you ever heard of him, but there's one, Sean James. You ever heard of Sean James?
I
That's
haven't.
one
I'll write
I
them down.
that's one I highly recommend you look at. And then
Okay,
ZZ Ward was another one that
I've heard of
he
him.
turned me on to. But I've also Jason Isbell and the Drive By Truckers. I mean, there's just so many. Yeah, I've really kind of gone down that rabbit hole where I've examined and check out some of the alternative country stuff, and I'm loving it. So what are you listening to these days? What kind of music are you? What's your music background? What artists did it for you? Let's kind of start there.
Okay. Well, I mean, it all starts with Elvis. Back in the day, I've always been a big Elvis fan. And then it was interesting because I probably went straight from Elvis to Ozzy and Black Sabbath. Um,
Nice.
and that's kind of my early upbringing. And hearing a lot of classic country, but it was Elvis, then it was Ozzy, and then it was Crew, and it was all the different metal bands in the '80s. I have a big place in my heart for them. Love Sabbath. And then at a time when in the '90s, in the mid '90s, I started hearing alternative country, which
Hmm.
is not rock country and not radio country. It's more of punk country. Um,
Hmm.
a little bit looser, right? It's almost like a rock song with a Telecaster and a fiddle in it, and a little bit more of a
Right.
country beat. Um, and I loved it. And this is, Uncle Tupelo, Whiskey Town, Old 97s. It came
Hmm.
on early on. You had these other bands that came on, where you'd have, oh gosh, the sound that just almost reminded me of a little bit of metal in there, a little bit more of a metal feel or a punk feel to it, and it
Hmm.
wasn't radio country, and I heard it, and it was just refreshing to me. Um, and so just fell in love with those bands, and then at the same time, realized something I'd always kind of dressed in, pearl snap shirts since I was a little kid, and that it became a thing where everybody was wearing their old vintage pearl snap shirts. This is like Graham Parsons if you go back to cosmic American music back in
Right.
the '60s. He's
Yeah.
like I would say he's the father of alternative country, and that sound where they're taking pop songs but making country, not Nashville country, but different country, not Texas country either. But that's kind of the forefathers. You got Steve Earle in there, um, and so that's kind of where that came from. And I just fell in love with that music, and it really was a place where when I think back to the '80s and the metal I was listening to then, a lot of those bands kind of stopped playing. And it was like almost a continuation where I'd love to go to live bands, and they were starting to come to Santa Barbara and California, where I was at earlier than that in the mid '90s. After I graduated, high school, I was back down in Southern California, and these bands started touring around there. I started seeing them, and that was kind of where alternative country came into play. And then again, early 2000s, I was like, this is such a great music. And it was really a little bit underground. I was like, I'm going to start a website, and it's pearlsnap.com. And I was going to promote alternative country music. And then I was like, I was like, well, I'm an archaeologist, so I'll write down the history of pearl snaps. And then I did the history of fasteners all the way back to like Greeks and Romans, when they were using daggers to hold their sheets together. And, um, and did that. And then I started selling vintage Pearl Snap shirts, right? Just old Western shirts, whether they had the embroideries or not, and defined when they were made, the original ones that started, back in the 40s, with Rockmount, H-Bar C. You got your nudie suits that you'd see Elvis wearing or Roy Rogers wearing or Graham Parsons wearing. Those are nudie suits. And I loved the history of that, and I basically wrote the history of alternative country a long time ago, because it was just so interesting to me, and I loved the bands. And then more would come out, but they just have a couple year stint, maybe 2 or 3
Mhm.
years. They do these albums. They're fantastic bands. But then some were still together, and then they morph into others like Uncle Tupelo, right? What that turned into
Right.
Wilco and Sunbolt, right?
Yep. Yep.
Which you got 2 great bands out of it, but you still can't beat Uncle Tupelo, in my opinion. You can't beat No Depression as far as that album goes, or early Whiskey Town before Ryan Adams went solo. That was better than anything he did solo. And I love the alternative country, not Americana, but alternative country. There's a difference. And it's really the backbeat, and it's the attitude of it. And there's a lot of current ones that I love now. I think the best one right now, because there's ones that fall into alternative country, but I think there's a band called the Drop Teens out of Texas.
Mhm.
They're fantastic. And I think they've got a new album coming out, but they're ones that I really love. There's other ones that have Lucero, I'd mentioned, they've been around for a long time. They were early, they were probably around 98, 99 when they came out. They're still together, and that's how I got to Skinwalker Ranch. But I love Lucero, different bands. Todd Snyder, if you know him, he just passed last year.
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Right.
More on the folky side, but he's still alternative country, in my eyes. But those are kind of the bands that I love that deal with alternative country. There's a lot of different ones. That fall within that realm that I probably could list 50 bands that I love that have fantastic albums that hardly anybody's heard. There's
Yeah.
one that stands out that I just was fantastic. They were probably around for 2 years and gone, named Truck Stop Darlin'. You just look them up. They're absolutely awesome alternative country albums, and I don't even know where these
Sweet.
guys ended up. They just came on the scene, disappeared, because the scene is just kind of fleeting, as far as
Mhm.
that kind of music goes. But yeah, currently, I mean, that's the stuff I listen to. I, play and write music, in that realm of things, as well. And, it's what keeps me going with me. I love music all the time.
Yeah.
I probably get told to turn down my stereo far too often at my age,
Well,
but
I know what that's like. Yeah, my wife has long suffered through my passion for music, and one of the things that I thought was really cool is, of course, when you and I first met at Phenomicon this last year, I was wearing a Kraftwerk T-shirt,
mhm,
which most people in America have no idea who Kraftwerk is, but you did, and I was really impressed by that because, of course, me being a big synth guy, I mean,
mhm,
everything for me comes down through Kraftwerk, so it was really cool to see that you knew who Kraftwerk were, and we had a little chat about that. But of course, my music tastes are ridiculously eclectic. I can go from listening to the synth stuff like Kraftwerk, OMD, Depeche Mode,
yeah,
and stuff like that, and then 2 minutes later, I'm listening to Ozzy and Black Sabbath, AC/DC, and then I'm listening to stuff that would be more maybe bluegrass type stuff, like,
mhm,
an Alison Krauss and Union Station kinda type stuff, so I literally love everything. There's very few kinds of music that I don't like or at the very least have an abiding appreciation for, so it's always a pleasure to meet somebody else that, is a big music fan like myself, and John here, Mr. Nyberger, is another guy that I love talking music with. He's turned me on to some great bands, and Johnny turned me on to Youngblood a short while ago, and I heard their cover of the Kiss's "I Was Made for Loving You,"
yeah.
and I was like, "Oh my God, where has this been all my life?" I mean, so instantly turned me into a Youngblood fan. So all of the guys here just really have really excellent and varied taste in music. So that's great.
Yeah. I didn't hear Youngblood until he did Changes on Ozzy Tribute. And I was
Hmm.
like,
Right.
It's
"Who
so
is this
good.
kid?" And
So
I
that's
thought he
Yep.
did
actually
a
where I
really
first heard of him too.
Oh yeah, I thought he did a fantastic job, because changes is grounds really you shouldn't mess with. I mean, that song just means so much, and it was like, no, he did it justice. He did it justice. He did a really good, honorable job, and then he's, I think, blown up in the rock realm since that time because I don't think anybody that listened to Ozzy before that really knew who he was, and that's great because he's going to carry on that mantle for rock. But yeah, my day would be kind of similar to that. I might do Sabbath 1 minute and then Bob Snyder another minute if you know him, and then jump
Mhm.
over to Jason Boland or something later in the day. So there's a lot um, that I like, and it's all about the song and the sound, right? And if you got a really good song, that matters. My son, who's 9 years old, came home and said, I want, can you play me this song? And I didn't know who it was. And I am trying to groom them in the way of music, starting with Elvis and the Beach Boys and the Beatles and
Yep.
Bob Dylan, and working my way through, and I've gotten into Ozzy and Black Sabbath with them. And I mean, when my son can say, can I play Rat Salad? It's pretty cool. Um, and I'm like, no, we're not going to do Metallica yet, though. We're going to save that one. And Nirvana, like we're kind of almost at that stage. And then he came home and he's told me about this kid named Alex Warren, and I didn't know who he was. And I was like, all right, we'll play it. And so we played it. And I was like, okay, the guy's got a pretty decent voice and he writes pretty good lyrics and all this. And then we played his album, and my kid loves him now. And I'm like, he's probably in his 20s. I don't really know who he is, but he writes actually really good, sings really well. And I think he's up and coming. And it's not necessarily my type of music, but I can see him inspirational for, again, I have a 9 and a 10-year-old, son and daughter
Yeah.
that need their music to their generation. And I think that uh, Alex Warren is one of the kids that's going to bring that, which is interesting because I'm like, I kind of approve of all this music. Probably way better lyrics than what I was listening to in 1982. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, 82 was such a good year for music. There was, John, you might know Asia, right?
Absolutely. Had the album.
Steve Howe, and I mean, like a literal super group of some of the finest musicians. Is Steve Howe, and of course he did time with Yes, and then you had, you
I
know,
think Steve Hackett was in there too for a
Jeff,
brief time, maybe.
yeah, Jeff
Yeah,
Downs. I
Jeff
mean,
Downs. Yep.
yeah.
I tell you,
So,
this is the only group I hang out with that makes me feel young. The only group. I always feel like the old man whenever I'm around people, except here.
Johnny, what are you listening to these days? What's some of the recent music discoveries you've had? Tell us about
I
it.
haven't had any real crazy music discoveries. I've mostly been listening to a lot of covers, like younger, smaller artists doing covers of bigger songs. That's kind of, I guess, my niche of music, of what I really enjoy, is finding people that are doing covers of other people's music, because they can put an artistic twist on it that just really changes the song. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of country people that are taking rock songs and making them country, or country songs making them rock. Like, that's a lot of what I've been listening to lately.
No, I've
Nice.
seen some people online that are analyzing, like they're like an opera singer, and they're analyzing for the first time hearing.
Yeah.
I
The
remember,
char-
I remember you
the
by Skid Row or Stairway to
the
Heaven,
char-
and I'm
the,
like,
Yeah.
the charismatic voice. She is so
Yes, I
good.
love
Yes.
her.
that was
Yes.
it.
She's
But I
awesome.
watched it. I'm like, you've never heard that song, and so to actually see their face go, wow, what a voice. And I'm going, yeah, I've been, ever since I heard that the first time, I've thought the same thing. You never stop
Yeah.
when you're listening
Right.
to that song. And I thought that was pretty amazing to see people dissect that and wondering how they never, what was it like
Yeah.
before you heard Skid Row for the first time, or whoever that happens
Yeah.
to be, and
There's a
dissect different
channel I
bands.
really enjoy on YouTube. I it might be Drumeo, I might be wrong, but they're taking these world-class drummers and
Yes.
they're giving them a song that they don't know. They may have never even
Hmm.
heard it, and their goal is to
Yeah,
find
it's
a song they've
Drumeo.
never
Yep.
heard. And they'll give them the song with no drums. They listen to it and then ask them to play it. And some of the songs that they're playing and hitting the drums on, it's amazing that these drummers are almost playing the song to its original without having heard the original.
Yeah.
Wow.
But some of the changes they're adding in, where they're switching the timing on things, completely changes the song.
Johnny,
Yep.
was it you
It's
that
great.
sent me I think it was you, Johnny, that sent me the Phil Collins in the Air Tonight done as if it had been synthwave. I
Yes, I
mean,
believe I did.
I nearly jumped out of my chair when I heard that. I was just so blown away
It
because
was amazing.
because
And
my
I don't even
band
like synth music that much.
my band does a cover of In the Air Tonight, and when I threw the cover together, I used the actual same drum machine that Phil Collins used in the original, the Roland CR-78 drum machine. So when I do my covers with my new wave band that I'm in, like for instance the all the Depeche Mode covers that we do, I actually went out and tracked down the original samples that Depeche Mode themselves made for these songs. And so whenever you see my band performing any of these covers, I have this knack of where I go, and if I can't find, in the Depeche Mode case, the actual original samples they used on the recordings, then I find out what synthesizers, what guitars, what bass guitars, what drums, what drum machines, and I use my extensive toolkit that I have from, being a professional music producer for all these years, and I put the songs back together from scratch using the original instruments that they used to try to capture as much of the original magic as I can. And John, you've helped me out recently with the cover we did of a Billy Idol cover and a cover by the Cars. So you kind of know how meticulous I am about wanting to get songs exactly right to as close as I can. But covers are a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun doing covers in Hitchhiker. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So
When I build my next drum set, I very specifically want to get the toms that Phil Collins uses. Very much want to get those toms because there's just such a unique sound to those.
gated reverb. That's the main thing. Gated reverb is what he uses
Gated
on the
reverb.
snares. Yep. But so Chris, just real quickly, what guitars do you have? Do you like more acoustic or do you do electric as well? What are some of your favorites?
I probably do more acoustic. I like guilds, like Martin. I've got a Seagull. This is my kind of beater right over here hanging up. Stickers all over it that I've played for decades. I like older guitars. I got uh, a 74 D25 Guild and then an 81 Guild. One's mahogany top, one's spruce top. Um, and I love those. I love the sound of an acoustic guitar. But I also I have some Telecasters as well, or some Epiphone electrics. And I love to find the old made in Japan, lawsuit guitars. So I've got some of those, Les Paul, lawsuit guitars as well. And then, foreign ones, I just have fun with the old stuff. And so I enjoy that. And, but probably the guilds are my favorite, and then I do have an Elvis Presley D28 as well with like the leather
Mm,
bound outside cover. That's like a
Dang.
replica of his,
yikes.
and yeah, that's my masterpiece that I'm supposed to be beating up on, but I don't. I just kind of keep it off to the side and just beat up on this old
Yeah.
Siegel or one of the guilds play. But yeah, I've got a pile of guitars, but probably acoustic more than electric. And then again, I probably play because I write, because I like to write, and so I write a lot of lyrics and stuff, and then I put the melody to them. So that's my
Nice.
probably my favorite hobby to do. It's really just fun, and I've done for decades, and really enjoy doing. It's a lot of fun to put string words together and then
Yeah.
come up with something, create something from your brain or the air, the ether. It's pretty fun. So
Make something out of nothing, man. There's
yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
like it.
I love Elvis. I that's probably one of the more surprising music things is I listen to a lot of Elvis.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Elvis. I mean, there's every type of song. His voice is just fantastic. There's a lot of good stuff. I love everything he ever did, really. There's very few I don't like as far as him.
Yeah, he's a classic for sure. Have you ever seen the documentary The Wrecking Crew?
I don't think I have.
It's
Okay.
good. It's really
strongly
good.
strongly recommend it because basically it covers that whole period of music that was released in the 60s up through the mid 70s, and
Uh-huh.
how there's this legendary crew of session players that were the ones that actually played on all these massive hit recordings, like the Beach Boys. The only,
Yeah.
the Beach Boys themselves, with the exception of Brian, didn't actually play on their famous recordings. And so this documentary is about this group of musicians called the Wrecking Crew. And I mean, it just goes through all of them, because this same group of musicians, they played for like the Righteous Brothers. They were the in studio band for like all of these classic iconic hits of the 50s, 60s, and into the 70s. And John, have you seen it?
Yeah, oh, yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, they played on everything.
Yeah, I
Everything is, you name it.
yeah I
Sinatra, Carpenters, Mamas and the Papas, Beach Boys, Monkeys,
Yeah, I've heard
you
of
name it. They were
them.
on everything.
I've heard of
Yeah.
them in association with something, like with the Beach Boys. I think I've heard of
yeah.
them. Um,
Well, the guitarist, one of them was Tommy Tedesco, if you know him, and then Carol Kay played bass.
uh-huh.
One of the greatest bass players of all time, Carol Kay, if you ask me.
Wow.
And then, of course, one of the greatest drummers of all time, Hal Blaine. I mean, he's a legend in his own right as well. But yeah, if you get a chance, Chris, find the Wrecking Crew. I think they probably have it for free on YouTube. I actually went out and bought it on Amazon Prime because I like it so much. It was such a great documentary. But yeah, that's you've got an excellent taste in music. And for me, for the guitars, it's all about Gretsch. I'm a huge Gretsch fan because
Oh, I'd love
Brian
one.
Brian Setzer is one of my all-time favorite guitar players. And
Yeah.
the guitar player for the Cult, Billy Duffy, he's
Hmm.
into he plays Gretsch. And Martin Gore of Depeche Mode is a big Gretsch player as well. So that's why I went out and bought myself a really nice. I don't know if you got to see that Gretsch that I had at Phenomicon, the white Electromatic with the gold
I
hardware.
did
Oh,
see it. I did see it. I was admiring that. Yeah. Yeah. I've wanted to get one of those myself. I just haven't ever done it yet.
well, remind me to let you let you play with it for a bit this next year.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
We
need to
really
just
got to
have
get you out to Alabama and get you to go through the collections, because I'm not sure what all Travis has. I know his is crazy, but I mean, my
Yeah.
dad has. I stopped counting after I think 30 guitars.
Really?
He's
Wow.
insane.
I haven't seen that many, but he's got at least like 12.
Yeah.
Upstairs and downstairs, he's got guitars. I mean,
Oh.
they're everywhere. And then he's
Yeah,
got
it's
some in
just
a
ridiculous.
closet. I'm pretty sure he's got some in a closet. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was up to 30 at one point.
I've got between
But then
10
again,
and
I might have been
15.
counting ones that weren't his. I might have been counting ones that weren't his.
Yeah. You can't have too many guitars.
No. But if you ever are gone from your home for a long time and you need someone to babysit yours, I'm available.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
You know, I use that same argument with my wife and synthesizers, and she does not
Right?
believe me.
See,
It never
the guitars
works.
are most safe with me because I could not possibly play a guitar to save my life.
Well,
Just gotta start practicing.
I tried.
I'm
My
not a great
hand
I'm not a
doesn't
great
work
guitar
right.
player. Yeah.
Yeah. Sadly, on my left hand, this part of my hand doesn't work too well. So I could only play with basically 2 fingers. It doesn't really work.
Hmm.
Yep. Yes,
I
indeed.
tried to play John's bass on the opposite hand.
Okay.
That doesn't work either.
No? Keep trying. Or you doing drums though, right?
No, I'm trying to learn the drums. I'm the
Yeah.
worst musician here, I promise you.
Well, keep trying.
You're
You
actually
just keep
not you're
practicing.
not
It's
too
good for
shabby.
you, whatever you do.
You're not too shabby on the drums, Johnny. Truly, I've heard you
I'm
play.
slowly getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep practicing. My daughter loves the drums. My son loves guitar and the drums. They're practicing all the time. It's good for you. Good for the soul.
Yep.
Def-
Absolutely.
definitely.
Usually before we
Definitely is.
record, I'll do like 10, 15 minutes just getting my brain moving.
Oh, really?
Yep,
That's
it's
not bad.
just sitting right over there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a great way. You just sit down and, for me, sit down and strum guitar. Either you just strum something you know, or maybe something new comes out, but it feels good. It's a nice meditation. Good grounding.
Yep. If only cymbals weren't so expensive. Cymbals are my favorite thing, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to build a little guitar room out in the garage for the kids to play in currently. So
Hell yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All righty, gentlemen. Let's just kind of go around the room here. Closing thoughts and remarks. It can be about Skinwalker Ranch or archaeology or whatever the case may be. And John, we're going to start with you again today. Any closing
Well,
thoughts and remarks from you?
yeah, I just thought this was fantastic. It was great getting to chat with you and hear you tell a lot of this stuff again. Um, and you're presenting at Phenomicon this year, right? Like you're a speaker this year. Is that am I right?
I know I'm on like the subject matter expert panel, so
Okay.
I'm not sure if they're having me do anything else yet. I don't know.
Oh man,
They should
gotta
they
get
should
you
have
as
me
a
do
speaker, man.
Xenoarchaeology there, but I haven't heard yet.
Be freaking amazing to have you as a featured speaker. That'd be great.
Yeah, especially it'll
Power of
be
So, yeah,
suggestion.
well, we'll make it happen. We'll make it happen.
well, it would be after season 7 airs.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I'd have a
You could
lot
be able to
talk
talk a little
I'd have
about a little more
to
stuff.
talk about.
It won't have
I
to
would
be
not-
like
I
the
could
first year
untie
we
my
met you
tongue.
there.
What's that?
It won't be like the first year we met you there where you weren't actually on the show to the public yet. So nobody really knew
that's
who
where
you
I
were.
was- yeah, I was kind of staying back in the wings, and then everybody was off on one side, and they're all, come on over, and I'm like, can I? You know?
Is that allowed?
Yeah, am I allowed to come over there? So yeah, it was interesting. So yeah, I'd done that year, and I think the year before I'd even filmed for them, but they didn't air it. You know, we looked at some of the rock art that's out there, as well as filmed about my wife and my experience there. And they didn't air those, so we couldn't talk about them or really show up for any of that.
Right. Yeah. Right on. Johnny, closing thoughts or remarks? Anything to add, subtract, multiply, or divide?
I mean, I'm not good at numbers, but
Quadratic equations, maybe?
I can't even spell that. Now, you know, not a whole lot of craziness, not a whole lot with SWR, but one of the things I really love is the fact that it seems like everyone that's involved in some way, shape, or form is into music. And there's already one band that exists. But I'm telling you, at some point, there's got to be like 3 bands at least worth of people. Because I know
think-
our Rocket
yeah,
guys are
No,
musicians
yes,
as
yeah.
well.
We talked about that on the cruise. I think there's at least this many people that are musicians, and I'm just throwing that number out there because there's very few that are not players that are involved with the ranch, and I think that might say something. So
The creative side of the mind is really important. That's something I think I found.
it's really, really interesting. All I know is I want to jam with Pete. So
Right?
I want
Yeah.
to jam with
Everybody
Pete.
does. Everybody does.
We all do. Yep.
We all
I
I'm gonna
do.
wish-
get him to do a guitar solo on one of my songs. How about that? Maybe we can
That
open
would
with
be
Hitchhiker.
Sweet.
Can we, for the love of God, find a way to get someone into his computer and find that photo of him when he was touring?
Oh
I-
yeah.
I'm telling you, I will frame that and put it in my house. It's an amazing picture that almost no one gets to see, that he just casually showed a few of us at Phenomicon, and
Right.
we loved it because it's 80s hair band.
He put one up on the screen on the cruise.
It
Nice.
was probably the same one.
Probably
It
the
might
same
have
one,
been.
yeah.
It might have been. He put a couple of them up, and yeah, it was amazing.
Well, if you guys ever need a keyboard player, look no further.
Okay, I'm
Right
working on
on.
a song right now.
Cool. So, and of course, we'll go to you, Chris. Any closing thoughts or remarks from you about any of the stuff that we've covered today? Anything that maybe we didn't cover today that you just want to make a quick mention of? What say you?
I mean, we covered a lot of really good stuff. I mean, I love doing the work I do at Skinwalker Ranch. Everybody's really cool. Phenomicon is really, really cool to go to. As far as the band on Saturday night, you guys picked the greatest set list ever. I loved both years so far that I've seen. It's if people only go to Phenomicon for one thing, it's got to be Hitchhiker, because seriously, you guys are awesome. It's seriously great. It's like you're in great bar
Thank you.
band playing the best songs. I love it. So I'm looking forward to what you guys are going to play. But yeah, as far as the ranch, I can't recommend enough that people go to Mount Wilson Ranch, as well as come to Phenomicon, and everything at Skinwalker Ranch. The stuff is real. I mean, this whole
Yeah.
thing is real. Whatever's going on, all these, sitting next to John's dad, Jay, multiple times talking to him about these things. The stuff is all real and it goes back a long ways. And, if I ever get to truly present some of the things that I know, because there's a lot more that I know that I don't get to say to anybody yet. This stuff goes really far back in prehistory as well. It's really interesting. And I hope we get to keep investigating it and just figure out what's going on, because it's pretty amazing.
Fantastic. And I'll just add my 2 cents by saying I completely agree. I think the work that's going on at Skinwalker Ranch is extremely important about finding out not only about the phenomena, but just a little bit more about the history of humanity. Anytime we can learn more of the pieces of the puzzle, and especially me living here in Utah now to know a little bit more about the ancient history of Utah, I see only good things coming out of the work that everybody is doing out there at Skinwalker Ranch. You are truly doing extremely valuable work out there, all of you, in my opinion. And I'm just grateful to be a spectator to be able to watch it all unfold. And so, with that, Chris, we want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule to meet with us today. Always a great conversation to chat with you. Love talking about the music with you. And yeah, I also want to give a big shout out to Jonny and to John as well. Thank you as well, gentlemen, for taking of your time today as well to get together and have this wonderful conversation with Chris about all things Skinwalker Ranch and archaeology and all kinds of cool stuff. So, folks, if you want to know more about Phenomicon, just simply go to www.phenomicon.net, and that will tell you everything you need to know. And I believe tickets are still available. And if for no other reason, like Chris says, come to see Hitchhiker perform on Saturday, because it's always a good time. But there's so much more than just Hitchhiker performing. The conference itself starts on, I think, Wednesday, September 9th, and runs until Saturday the 12th. And there are so many great presentations. Jay Stratton will be doing a presentation, and hopefully by the time Phrenomicon rolls around, his new book will be out. And we're all getting really, really excited about Jay's book. And of course, the team at Skinwalker Ranch will be doing a presentation. And there's all kinds of great add on activities as well that you can be a part of. And me, John, and Jonny, and hopefully Roger as well, will be able to see all of you that subscribe here. Would be nice to see us at Phenomicon, because it's just a good time, just an awesome time. It's what my calendar year revolves around. That's how much I love it. But thank you again, everybody. And folks, if you liked what you saw or heard today, then please, by all means, give us a like down there below. Hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, we would love to have you subscribe to our podcast channel here at the Soul of the Unexplained, or as I like to call it, the Cheap Ass No Frills Podcast. But we're getting better at that because Jonny is doing such a great job with taking us back into the 21st century, and we sure appreciate all the stuff that Jonny does for us on that end to make us look not quite so cheap ass no frills. But we appreciate everything that Jonny does. And Roger, we want to give another big shout out to you. Hope that you get better soon, buddy. And hope that you get to join us here in the podcast in the not too distant future, folks. We have our next episode will be coming up in a couple of weeks, and for that, I'm pleased to announce we're going to have none other than Ben Woodruff, the biologist, who also, as I'm sure Chris knows who Ben is. Ben Woodruff will be joining us on the Soul of the Unexplained in a couple of weeks to talk about the amazing work that he's done and some of the cool things, trippy things that he has seen with the things that he's done as the biologist expert out there at the ranch, particularly regarding the strange rates of decomposition of dead animals. And that's pretty trippy stuff. So look forward to that, folks. And until then, folks, just take care of yourselves, love one another, be good to one another, and just have as many tacos as you can, because tacos are what life is all about. I'm telling you. And make sure you put onions and cilantro on them. We'll see you, folks. Thanks for joining us on the Soul of the Unexplained. We'll see you next time. See ya.
Thank you.